Well, Andy, thank you very much for joining us, and here we are for another round of questions from supporters ahead of the new season.
Thank you, Max. Delighted to answer a load of questions that have come in over the last few days on a wide range of different subjects, which hopefully will be of interest and inform supporters about the many things that are going on. We've also had the privilege of the last few weeks of answering questions at a BBC Solent forum. We made the trip over to the Isle of Wight, John and myself, to meet supporters over there. John and Rich have done some Q&As as well with the London Supporters Club and also with the Chichester branch as well in recent weeks. So I think it's really important that we continue to engage. We're delighted to be held accountable for many different things, but most importantly to let people know what's happening at their football club.
Let's delve straight into the questions. First of all is stadium development and the training ground. So Ian on Twitter, when will the Milton End work and Fratton End safe standing be completed?
Ian, that's a great question to start with, and thank you for putting it forward, because I think it reflects a huge amount of work that's taken place over the course of this summer. I'm delighted to say everything's on schedule. The Milton stand is in two parts. One was to get the main stand open in time for the start of the season. We had most of that open for the Bristol City game on Saturday, and the second part of the project is the corner infill, which will be completed towards the end of November. So on Saturday, we had the use of most of the seats. In the end, we had 1,800 Bristol City fans in attendance. We have over 2,000 Bristol Rovers fans coming in this Saturday, and they will see, an extended top bar concession walkway with 3 of the 4 kiosks open, serving alcohol to away supporters for the first time. The other big improvement will be that away supporters in wheelchairs will be able to sit with their own supporters for the very first time. Initially that will be towards the front of the stand in the southeast corner. We've also got the temporary control room, which is in that southeast corner as well, and a new matchday media room which can control every aspect of the scoreboards and the PA systems as well. So it's an absolute a lot, to get that done in a short space of time. I'm incredibly grateful to PMC, the contractors, the architects who have all come together to make that project work. The next part of the project is probably the most complicated piece of the infrastructure that we've done over the last 2 years is the corner. There have been several issues with foundations, which we did expect to find, and we are in a position there where that will have obviously a corner infill full of seats. We will have a new control room which will be sort of ready for November, and then where the existing temporary control room is in the southeast corner, that will provide more facilities for the women's toilets, which reflects the changing demographic of people attending football matches. And the biggest part of that corner will be an elevator, and the elevator will service supporters moving up to the top of the Milton End, most of them in wheelchairs, and those in wheelchairs, mobility issues that wish to access the upper sections of the North Stand as well. So again, that will be a massive improvement, enabling more and more people with mobility and disability issues to be able to watch football in a much more comfortable environment than what's been used to in the past. I think, quite frankly, for away supporters to have to sit with home supporters in the Fratton End has been an embarrassment to this football club over a number of years, and that finally is being put right, and we're very proud that we can move that forward. I think one of the big things in that stand, and the second part of Ian's question relates to safe standing or rail seating, and the whole Milton End has been equipped with rail seating, and that is obviously now fully operational. The next stage is the Fratton End. We are started yesterday the top 3 rows of the Fratton End to install the rail seating there, and then we have a 3-week gap between fixtures at home between the 3rd of September and the 24th of September, which will complete the next 12 rows. So basically rows CC to MM will all have rail seating in place by the end of September, at which point we can then apply for the licence, and I think this will be one of the best equipped stadiums in League One in terms of the offer for rail seating going forward. And that's important because, as well as, saying, we're sort of being able to lead the way in terms of this one, it actually protects our capacity. We will have a capacity of around about 21,000 by the time we get to November. And we have to protect that capacity given all the investment that's been made, and it can be undermined by persistent standing. So the fact we have rail seating now will totally mitigate that risk and enable us to be in a good place. Final thing I want to say on that one, Max, is that we will be able to segregate the Milton End into 3 sections of 1,000 seats each. Under EFL regulations, we only have to offer 2,000 seats to away supporters. So it does technically mean that we can permanently offer up to roughly probably about 800 seats after segregation in the south section of the Milton End. And that does mean there is a potential or a possibility that we could offer season tickets in that particular area, which I think will be of some attraction to those supporters not in the top 15 rows of the Fratton End who would like to take advantage of rail seating.
Next question, is there any update on access solutions from Fratton's train station to Fratton Park?
Yeah, that's an ongoing project. I think it's a question I'm asked regularly on these forums. And what we're at the moment has been working with Network Rail, South West Railways, the council, M7 Real Estate, who own the Pompey Centre, and under the leadership of Stephen Morgan as well. So we are in a position where there are potential 3 routes that have been identified, and the next stage would be to conduct a feasibility study on those routes. Now, as a football club, we're very, very keen to see the different partners all sort of work with us on that one. The council are hugely supportive of making that happen. And that will enable us then to look at the next stages going forward. So a huge amount of work's being done. I think it's really, really critical important, this project. I think some people have said, why should other partners contribute? Well, this is about economic regeneration of the whole Fratton and Milton area, something which ourselves and M7 are keen to do in our future plans, and the council too. A rail bridge on match days, we did a travel survey back in March, which over 3,500 supporters responded to, and I'm very grateful for those that took the time and trouble to do so. What that identified was about 19% of supporters currently use the train to come to Fratton Park on match days. 65% of people said if there was safer access with a better footbridge and a better walkway through to Fratton Park from the station, and didn't have to sort of take on the dangers and the perils of walking along Goldsmith Avenue, then they would be in a position where they would potentially use the train. Now that's quite a high number, but if we sort of extrapolated that down and said, well, let's look at, say, 34% might use the train, then we start to look at other factors, environmental issues, for example. That actually, across the whole travel survey, then we're looking potentially about 44 tonnes per match day of CO2 emissions by people using the car to travel to Fratton Park. And if we could get those sorts of numbers, just 34% of people from 19 started to use the train, that number comes down to 34. So there's a significant environmental impact that benefits the whole of Portsmouth from doing that. And then you start to look at the other impacts it might have on non-match day activities, both here at the stadium and at the shopping centre as well, and the whole Fratton area. By having a safer route, it sort of works 365 days a year. And you look at the revenue opportunities to the rail operators as well. I think we just looked at some numbers, and 19% of people using the train is probably worth about £1 million a season to Network Rail. That goes up to 2 million if we can get to, say, 35% of people using the train. So there's a significant economic impact of doing that. But overall, this is about the whole regeneration of the area, something crucially important to ourselves. We would look to obviously increase stadium capacity, but also build new houses around the site as well. M7 want to build new houses too. So it's an area which helps regenerate the area, and football clubs have a real massive impact on social regeneration of their areas with activity that goes on around the stadiums. We've seen that at Manchester City, for example. We've seen that at Tottenham. We've seen that at Brighton. I mean, Brighton have done their own study, and the economic impact, social value that stadium has brought to that area of Brighton is in the region of £275 million to the city. So these are the things that football clubs can play a major part in doing. But it all starts with a footbridge, and it's going to benefit the football club by having a footbridge, but it's going to benefit other partners in the city, and that's why we're all determined to make sure we all play our part and work together to try and achieve this. And we desperately need Network Rail to come on side with us as well.
Are there any plans for another screen that can be viewed from the Milton End?
Not currently. The screen at the moment is best viewed from those sitting in the Fratton End and the lower sections of the north and south stands. Those people who are sitting in the upper tiers of the north and the south stand have very much an obstructive or no view at all. So I think the first priority would be, could we install something at lower level, pitch side perimeter level, which would certainly give a view of the time, for example, and any other things we could add to that using LED imagery or whatever. So that's a project we're looking at the moment, and one that we hopefully will improve the matchday experience.
Next question, will the Fratton End seats be updated to the same colour as the recently renovated stands?
Yeah, that's a longer term project. Over time we want to make that happen. We've got very, very smart uniform seats now across the north, south and Milton ends. So the Fratton, which actually looked pretty good 2 years ago in comparison, direct comparison to those three stands, doesn't look the same as it is. So we're starting with the top of the new rail seats will go across the top 15 rows, and then we'll explore how we can then improve it. But it's not a cheap process. Just to give you an idea of costs, the cost of installing those 15 rows of rail seating is just under £250,000. It's a huge capital investment to make. If we replace a seat, it's about £30, just a basic seat. But even then, if we're looking at another 2,500 seats times £30, again, it's a significant investment to do all of that as well. But it's something, yes, that we will do over time.
Time for a question via email. With season tickets sold out again this season, is this a sign that there will definitely be demand for a larger North Stand?
I think that's certainly our ambition, to increase the capacity of Fratton Park. We need to do that in tandem with all the other works that we described earlier on in terms of regenerating the area behind the North Stand as well. So yeah, it's about capacity. We didn't quite reach our 40,500 sellout this year, which is 150 short, so we're there or thereabouts. But I think with another good go in November, if we can sell season tickets in the Milton, then we could potentially get hopefully towards 15,000. But we've got to increase capacity. We've got to get to that regular sellout, so 21,000 first to make that case. But the long-term ambition of the football club and the way we want to progress to get into the championship means it's an area that we're keen to explore and develop the capacity of the North Stand. So having these numbers is hugely encouraging. And I do want to say, Max, thank you to everybody who has renewed this season. I think the numbers, we're very much humbled by getting to those figures. We've imposed a price rise of about 9% in most cases across the stadium. We've had to do that because our cost base is just soaring at the football club. We continue to lose £2 to £3 million every year, and we can't continue to lose that sum of money every year. So to be able in a position for people to have that show of faith in us is something we're extremely humbled by, and we appreciate the cost pressures on people's own budgets, household incomes. It's not easy. So to support the football club and stick by the football club in these times, we're hugely appreciative of that show and demonstration of commitment.
Another question via email. Has the poor selection of beers on match days been addressed in the closed season?
Well, we are going to change the beer selection for next season. We're bringing in Madry Lager from the start of the season. We're changing over to Belhaven Saltaire Pilsner as well, and we're also bringing in East Coast IPA. So will be a change to the lineup of beers in the new season. Well, obviously we brought Moretti into some of the units last season, the container and the new upper concourse bars in the North Stand that we developed, so those will continue too. But absolutely delighted with the response that we had to the take-up of food and drink in the kiosks last season. Hugely encouraging. We increased revenue by 65% in those areas, so really grateful to Piglet's Pantry and the work that they put in to make that happen. And of course we're looking to grow that further this season, the introduction of a better range of products, alcohol into the Milton End for 23-24.
What are the plans for the space around the training ground?
The training ground is, we have a master plan for that particular project. We have, the first stage at the moment is that we've spent a lot of money, investment of £2.5 million into the main gym building, and that is starting now to show its fruits because membership has increased from 1,800 to 2,500 in the space of 6 months. So that's hugely important because we're looking there to use the gym to generate revenue to finance future improvements at the football club, so and particularly at the training ground. So what we want to achieve next is to move the first team into the main building. We can't do everything at once. I think it's important to appreciate the level of investment, capital investment that's gone into the ground. Just this project at Fratton Park alone has been a £12.5 million capital investment. We've seen capital investment in terms of the training ground, the purchase of the training ground, and the refurbishment works we've done. Another £5 to £6 million has gone into that as well to get that to where it is. And normally capital projects are funded out of company profits. The fact is we lose £2 to £3 million each year, so we couldn't do all these things without further investment coming in from ownership to make all these projects work and continue to invest in the first team. So we've got to plan these things over a number of years. We've got sitting down with Michael this week, as we do, and we continue to review a 5-year CapEx programme of different works that we want to do. Whether it be the training ground, whether it be here at Fratton Park. Although we've completed a lot of work here, we still have ongoing issues with a lot of spend. We got an old stadium with old roofs that need replacing. We've got a pitch that needs doing. We've got to complete the TV gantry still. We want to look at how we can improve non-matchday facilities in certain parts of the ground as well, so we can build and develop an event, meeting, conference business as well. But all those things we can't do in one go, so we have to plan accordingly. The training ground is very much part of those plans, as I said, to move the first team into the main building, to look then about how we can increase the number of pitches by removing the porter cabins, tidying up the areas where the car park currently is towards the rear of the stadium, the old AstroTurf pitches, looking in terms of the possibility of putting out a 3G pitch there for the benefit of the academy or even a dome. So those are all projects that I continue to work. We're committed to doing as much as we possibly can, but we have to do it over a period. We just can't snap our fingers and do everything in one go. But it's important to have the vision, and it's important to have the ambition, and it's important to have that capital plan to take the football club forward.
Brilliant. So on to retail. Jack asks, is there any updates we can have on the third kit for the 23-24 season?
Yeah, delighted to say that will be announced ahead of the season. So towards the end of this week, the new 125 centenary kit will be available, one we're looking extremely forward to. I've seen a few ideas of what it might look like, but hopefully supporters will be as pleased as those. And indeed, we're very, very, very grateful to the positive response we've had to sales on the home shirt, and indeed the away shirt, which is a little bit different. It's a little bit brave, I think, in some areas, something we've not probably done before. But delighted with the reaction we've had to both those kits, and looking forward to the 125 kit coming out towards the end of this week.
Russ asks, are there any plans to open another club shop? Many other clubs have one at the ground and another in the city centre.
Yes, it's very much part of how we look forward to progress our merchandising business. Again, we had a good year last year. We've had a good start to this year with the sales of the home shirts. The first thing we want to do, though, is around the stadium. So what people will see from the start of this season is a new merchandising kiosk on the corner of the South and Milton stand as you enter the South stand. And if that goes really, really well, we've looked to develop a few more kiosks in the Fratton and North stand. So we're going to pilot that one first. That will send a range of matchday clothing, so things like shirts and scarves will be on sale there, hats and everything else that people might want to take it once they're inside the ground, might want to buy and purchase. Longer term, it's been, we'd love to have something in Gunwharf, particularly can we work with Nike to have a presence in the Nike store there, and that is something which we're making very, very good progress on, and hopefully we'll have some news on that very shortly.
Are there any more plans to increase the off-pitch revenue?
Yes, I that's something I'm very keen on. It's it's something that I'm very much involved with, both at Norwich City, my 11 years there, and 12.5 years at MK Dons, with obviously a hotel and conference and events business, which was extremely strong and very much sustained the football club there as it played a major part at Norwich as well. So one of the big projects we're looking at the moment is what we can do with the existing infrastructure that we have at Fratton Park, and one of those areas would be the Victory Lounge. So there's an ongoing project at the moment there to see if we can create a very, very special venue on non-match days maybe extending a little bit and improving the fan zone outside as well, so it becomes one complete project, and not forgetting as well that we want that Victory Lounge to work for our supporters on match day as well. So that's another work in progress at the moment, and hopefully we can share some plans very shortly.
Question from Phil. He asks, why are stadium tours only for match days?
Great question, Phil. Yeah, we want to try and see if we can expand those, particularly during the school holidays. We're very grateful to the Historical Society who conduct those tours on match days. And I know that Colin Farmery, who is a chair of the Historical Society, is looking to see if we can do a few of those over the next few weeks during the school holidays and into October half term as well. They're fantastic. I'd really encourage anybody who's not been on one to go on a tour with Colin and his team, full of knowledge, full of information, and some great sights to see around Fratton Park, which perhaps a lot of supporters wouldn't have seen in the past, but fully exposed on match days. You get a chance to go into the boardroom, have a look at the trophies the club's won over the years. Director's Corridor with its timeline, Champions of England, is fantastic as well. But there's lots of other areas you get an insight into, dressing room areas, tunnel areas. So I think, yeah, it's a great opportunity, and we must do more in that particular area.
On to ticketing. Joe asks, are the club looking to let schools in on match days? I overheard a child at my son's school say he'd love to go, but mum and dad can't afford to.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do more. We've obviously got issues that we nearly sell out the stadium for most games in particular. So it's where we can encourage, we can do these things like the EFL Trophy games as well, by making pricing extremely competitive for for schools to come into, or for young people to come into. Working with junior football teams, for example, is another big area as well. Looking at how we can potentially do that as well with the women's team going forward as well. It's really, really important that we continue to look at every single way we possibly can to grow the next generation of supporters. Football, we don't want following Portsmouth Football Club to become a sort of a closed shop. It's got to be something that we've got to use every opportunity to get that new generation involved.
A number of fans have asked about the new ticket office booking fees. Would you be able to explain their introduction?
Yes, what we're trying to do is move the ticket office into a more digital, online, fan-friendly experience. So effectively, for home tickets, you can book a ticket online, you can download the ticket to a print-at-home service, and there is no charge or fee for doing so. To open up our ticket office, we have to employ a number of staff, and to be quite frank, the cost of doing that is increasing. We're seeing big increases in the cost of minimum wage. We have a big away ticketing operation to run, which effectively takes up 70 to 80% of our operational time. It's not particularly an efficient process, which is why we've made some changes to the loyalty programme going forward as well. And really, I think it's right across all entertainment businesses at the moment. If you go to the cinema, for example, I booked some tickets this weekend. There was no charge for doing so online, but if I'd have gone to the cinema, I'd have been charged for doing so. And that's the way that I think we're trying to develop the business. Doesn't mean that we're going to close the ticket office. It's still there, but we've got to find a way of trying to cover some of our costs. So it's a £3 booking fee. For a postal fee for tickets going out per transaction, it's £2.50. Multiple tickets, it should still cost you £2.50. And if anybody's been charged more than that for single tickets, then let us know, and we will sort that out for you. But yeah, it's a way that we need to go as a business. We've got to look at a lot more in terms of how we can enhance the digital experience at Fratton Park through many different ways outside of ticketing as well. It's the way. If we don't do this, we're going to get left behind, and it's an area that, as I said, if you book online, we don't want anybody to pay for that. We want to encourage more and more people to use that service, and in fact, probably about 70 to 80% of our tickets now are ordered online, and that's the way that we want to continue.
Question from Adam, are there any future plans in place that would allow for season tickets to be added to an Apple Wallet?
Yeah, it's something we need to work with the Apple developer and get that done, and it's a project that we're currently working on to make that happen. Again, it's all about making this football club more digitally connected, and that's a big way, a big step forward if we, as and when we make that happen.
Final ticketing question, why are the club reproducing season tickets every year? Surely we should be in a position by now where season tickets can roll over season on season.
Yeah, a very, very good question. Totally agree with that. At the moment, we have some issues this season where we have made some changes, particularly to age categories. We've increased the junior age up towards under 14s, so that has meant that a number of new season tickets would have needed to be created anyway. We do have obligations to both to sponsors of the EFL and our own sponsors as well to appear on those tickets, but there's no reason why those can't appear digitally as well. So another project we'll continue to work towards. Can't give any timescales on that, but it's certainly a direction of travel and the right way to go.
And we'll finish up with some football questions. First of all, Brad asks, is there any word on a 125th anniversary fixture?
Well, I'm incredibly grateful to the huge amount of work that's been put into by the 125th anniversary committee, comprised Historical Society, Pompey Supporters Trust and a number of people from the football club who have all come together to create a whole range of events across the year. It's quite extraordinary, the amount of activity that's taking place. We went back to last April and we were able to welcome back a number of former players to the club. We had another game where we had Community Ownership Day to celebrate the achievements and the work and amongst a number of different people who helped save the club and took it to where it is today. And of course we had another game where we were able to welcome the families of the founders of Portsmouth Football Club back in 1898. But across the rest of the year, a huge amount of activity is taking place. We have a celebration game against Royal Artillery, one of our first opponents between the academy. That's taking place at HMS Timerhead in September. And that will be open to supporters to come along to and be a part of that. There are a huge amount of events, a Hall of Fame dinner, a big celebration dinner later towards the end of the celebrations in early 2024. We have obviously looked at merchandise. You can see the shirts behind me, Max, and those, a number of those have been developed and on sale in the shop. And the first selection were hugely popular when they went on sale back in March. When we get to September, the Supporters Trust will unveil the Jimmy Dickinson statue, which has been a real labour of love over a number of years now to get to that stage, and a truly fitting celebration of a Pompey great. And then we will go into quite a bit of other activity that's taking place culturally, working with the council in terms of some art and culture work as well. So the important thing is to leave a real big legacy here. And I understand some frustration that we didn't play glamour opposition for our friendly last week. It's very difficult to get glamour opposition now towards the end of pre-season. Everybody will be aware that last weekend nearly every Premier League team was either playing out in the Far East or in the Premier League series in America. So, when I first came into football in sort of 1997, 98, you were able to always look at getting a Premiership team, or maybe, if you wanted to splash the cash, get a top European team to come over and play you in pre-season. That's simply not the case anymore. You might be very lucky and get an under-21 team come and visit you, but that's not befitting of a top celebration game. European opposition has become more difficult because the advent of the Europa Conference League and the increase in the Europa League, which used to be the UEFA Cup, means that qualifying stages take place from mid-July to early August, and any team now that's in the top half of the European League won't know their commitments until May. And the most important thing is going into March, April, is that you've secured your opposition for pre-season by then. Otherwise, you're jeopardising the preparations for your head coach, your first team manager. And that's why we, in April, we went for Bristol City, which the most important thing, which surpassed anything else, was to make sure that John had, really good preparation for his final game ahead of the start of the season. So there are other ways we can look at things. Fixture congestion is really big for the first team. You're looking at 60 games across the season. Just trying to fit a game in the season is difficult. As I said, we've got the game with the Royal Artillery, which is something a little bit different. But we're also looking as well as to how we can, maybe take advantage if there are any gaps in the season. Can't promise that, because it's always short notice of international call-ups. You don't know till 10 days beforehand. So again, difficult to arrange opposition. Perhaps we can do something special as well with our women's team too. So that's something we're exploring.
And that brings us on nicely to our next question. Pompey Women, what was the inspiration behind the decision to move them into a semi-professional model?
Well, I think first of all we have to congratulate the women's team for an excellent season last year, an outstanding achievement, exceeded expectations, finished just outside top spot, which would enable them the opportunity to compete for a place in the second tier. And looking forward, the women's game is growing at such a fast pace, the fastest growing sort of sport in the world at the moment. We're in the midst of a World Cup, hugely successful, plenty of eyeballs on watching not just the England team, but most of the teams that are competing out in Australia and New Zealand. We had the success of the Lionesses last summer, and that's led to an explosion in participation of the game. Pompey in the community, their girls' courses now sell out quicker than the boys. I think it just reflects the interest in the game and the opportunity that exists for young girls and women to participate in a sport which for many years was closed off to them. So really exciting time to be involved. We want to make sure that the women's team going forward can build on the successes that they had in that last season. So what we've done is to create a new company, Portsmouth Women Community Limited, to sit alongside Portsmouth Men's Community Limited, independently funded by Tornanti, which has enabled us to offer semi-professional contracts to the squad for next season. So Jay Sadler's been out and been able to offer 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, or 1 year with an options, something he's never able to have done before. Previously, his players were paid mileage expenses and nothing more, and that meant that it was a very temporary. You couldn't look at things on a long-term basis. So we've been able to secure Jay as well, which is important. Very talented coach, highly respected in the women's game, and somebody who can lead us forward going. But I think it's a real important that in this 125th year we have a real big legacy project, and I think that investment and the way that this is now going to inspire a generation of young girls and women going forward is hugely important, and something that I'm personally looking forward to supporting throughout the next year, and seeing the team at what's going to be a big moment for women's football. The top 2 divisions are going to break away in terms of support and investment, new TV deals. It's going to be really good. There'll still be a pyramid. There's going to be an extra promotion spot going into the Championship next year, so the winners of the North section and the winners of the South section in the 3rd tier will both be promoted, not have to play off against each other. So we want to be part of that as much as we want to be part of the Championship in men's football.
Given the positions needed for the medical team, will you be appointing a new head to then help with appointing other positions, or will the panel consist of yourself and Richard Hughes? No,
we've already made that appointment, so we have a new head of medical and sports science will join us shortly once they've worked their notice period out at their present employer. So hugely excited about that. We have a first team physio about to be appointed as well, and in terms of sports science we're strengthening that department. We've appointed Max Whittingham as strength and conditioning coach. He's made a step up from the academy, helped us throughout pre-season. It's been hugely popular with the players, done some great work, so well done Max, and it shows another opportunity that exists for people within the academy to progress into first team football. And we'll also be bringing in a sports science lead as well. It's an area that we feel is hugely important and an area that we want to invest in further.
Ben asks, now Richard Hughes is in the building, does it make your role a little easier in terms of transfers? How does the transfer policy work now?
No, it's been great to have a sporting director in place who can have oversight over a whole football operations, not just recruitment, so sports science and medicine, analysis, recruitment, the ground staff. Somebody who's on the ball all over it, working at the training ground is massive, and it's been a huge help to me in terms of the portfolio of responsibilities that I have as chief executive. I've got experts in every field around me, whether it be in media, whether it be in finance through Tony Brown, whether it be through safety and security, Marie Steadman, HR, Lena Small. We have commercial, where we've now brought in Mark Judges from Sussex County Cricket Club as a director of sales to work alongside another specialist in their field, in Matt Barker in marketing. So throughout the football club, we have a range of responsibilities. IT, we have our own head of IT now, which we didn't have before. So really important that we're well structured. And in terms of transfer activity, that's been huge, because there's lots of different processes to getting a player in. It starts with sort of understanding the type of player that we want to go for in particular positions, and what sort of attributes we're looking for, and then we can start to identify probably 30 to 40 players in that position, which is what Phil Boardman and his team of scouts will go out to do, and then Phil and Rich can whittle that down to say 5 or 6 players, so that John can have then the involvement in terms of the type of player that he thinks out of those 5 or 6 will best fit him. We then get to a stage where we will all then get together as a group, Rich, myself, John, Tony Brown, the coaches, Phil, to actually identify is that the right fit for the club, and then we can go off and do the financial deals, which we have an involvement in across the board, whether it be myself, Tony, Rich, dealing with agents or dealing with other clubs. It's very much a combined effort, and we have a very much a maxim here that we put into place when we bought the head coach model, and when John came into the building, and it was very clear that we get to a stage where everybody has to be very much aligned on what we want to do. So if Rich really wants a player and John doesn't want him, we won't proceed. Equally, if John wants to bring in a particular player and Rich says no, then we won't bring it in. And we've not been in that situation because of the way the process works. Everyone's been totally aligned, and that's why I'm just delighted with the amount of business we've been able to do so early in the window. I heard one club manager make a statement earlier in the week to say that their team at the weekend will bear no resemblance to the team he puts out at the beginning of September. We're not in that position because we've done a lot of our business early. We've still obviously got a couple of, or certainly one position we want to fill to come in to the building, and we then start to reflect back on maybe 13 signings already made. Hopefully by the time the season kicks off on Saturday, that will have been some good work and some good business over the summer.
You touched on the 13 incomings there. A question on Twitter: how pleased are you with the summer transfer business so far?
Yeah, I'm pleased that we've got so much done early. I'm delighted that it aligns to the strategy that we set out. If we go back, I think I've said this a number of times, that we've reflected on why probably the club hasn't progressed as quickly as we wanted it to in terms of winning promotion to the Championship. That remains our overriding ambition. That's what success will look like this season. If we can win promotion, that determines success, whether it be automatics, whether it be by the playoffs. It's something that John clearly stated at the BBC Solent Forum. It's something that Michael Eisner in his interview in June set out to do, and something we're all aligned to. And we feel we got the strategy right in terms of what we wanted to do. We wanted to go out. We were very comfortable about paying transfer fees for young, emerging, first team ready talent, and we've done that since January in terms of 5 players that have come into the building. Riley Towler, Paddy Lane, Terry Devlin, Cassini Yengi, Christian Sadie. We've also paid a fee for somebody who's got bags of experience at this level and a huge pedigree in Anthony Scully. So that business has been done. We've paid fees for those players. We've also brought in some real good, strong experience, the likes of Gavin White, Regan Poole, into the building as well. Jack Sparks has a lot of experience, even as a young player. In both Leagues 1 and Leagues 2, Ben Stevenson, Connor Shaughnessy, and then of course in the goalkeeping positions we now have competition in terms of 2 permanent goalkeepers that we own, and that's important as well because that leads me on to loans. We try to reduce the reliance on loan players. Nothing wrong with having loans. It might be that we have 4 or 5 loans in seasons going forward. But the sheer fact of the matter was we were spending a huge proportion of our budget on loan players over the last 2 to 3 years, twice as much as any other club in League One of our expenditure was going on loan players. And we want to build something for the long term here. It's not just about a quick fix success. It's been, we want to succeed and we want to push on. And we're only going to do that with a strong core of players that are our own and a young group of players that hopefully we can stick together and we develop real assets for the football club and opportunities for players to develop and grow their own careers at higher levels. And that is, I think, reflected in the activity that we've done. We haven't got everything done that we wanted to do. We've still got more to do, and this is very much, the first sort of steps in terms of that strategy that we're seeing now over a couple of windows. But I hope now people can see that what we've been talking about is now starting to come to fruition. We're walking the talk, and that's where we're going to go, and that's how we're going to bring success to Portsmouth Football Club.
And just one final question to finish off. How much are you personally looking forward to the coming season?
Oh, I'm immensely looking forward, as you do to any season, but particularly this one, given it's the 125th year that we're going into a Portsmouth Football Club and all the activities that are planned. Hugely excited by the amount of business that's been done within the first team. We just can't wait for that first fixture, see the Fratton End open during the course of the season, to complete the whole stadium and have that ready, continue to make the developments and progression of the training ground, working in the academy as well. Got a great team of people that have come into it, which have given opportunities to two members of staff in the last 6 months to progress to the first team, in Zesh Raymond and Max Whittingham. Want to see more of that, where talent can come into the building. We can give them opportunities, and we make this a great place for everybody to come to work in, with real opportunities for them. And elsewhere throughout the football club, we continue to develop, our commercial activities, working with our partners, Piglets, working with Mosaic at Pompey Health and Fitness Club. Again, our other partners as well, and that we're trying to work with in terms of retail in Nike Just Sport, and delighted, that their kits have been so well received this year. So a huge amount going on, but the most important thing is, the only way we make this work is having great teams and great people around us. And I'm privileged to work with, fantastic people, passionate staff, very proud to work for Portsmouth Football Club, who want to work collaboratively, want to work together. And those are all the values that we're trying to create to make sure this football club can progress, be successful, and achieve everything that every supporter wants to see.